Hello everyone, my name is Trilochan. As a part of our NCERT series, we are discussing 6th class history. In this video, we are going to discuss our next chapter, what books and burials tell us. Before taking up this topic, I just wanted to make one quick announcement. I am going to start one separate platform for two different modules. One is for Telugu medium, another for English medium. These modules deal with history, geography and current affairs, especially international relations. And I'm going to start even mentorship program as well. Coming to our chapter, what books and burials tell us. This chapter revolves around two topics, books and burials. If you take the Indian context, ancient most books are Vedas. Vedas are one of the oldest books in the world. How many Vedas are there? There are 4 Vedas. Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda. Among these 4, Rig Veda is the oldest and it is composed about 3500 years ago. That means 1500 BC. Rig Veda includes more than 1000 hymns. These hymns are also known as suktas. These hymns composed in praise of various gods and goddesses. In Rig Veda, there are 3 important gods. That means 3 gods were mentioned several times. So, who are they? Agni, fire god. Indra, warrior god. Soma, it is a plant from which a special drink was prepared called as Soma Rasa. Rigvedic hymns were composed by various sages or rishis. Sometimes they called themselves as Aryas. They described their opponents as Dasas or Dasyus. Dasas, Dasyus did not perform yagnas or sacrifices. They may speak different languages. Dasas and Dasyus speak different languages. Aryas speak Sanskrit, that is Vedic Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a part of Indo-European language family. What about Dasas and Dasyus? They speak different languages. South Indian languages belong to Dravidian family. In central part of India, that means in central India, various tribes speak different languages. They belong to Austro-Asiatic family. Northeastern part of India has got different languages. They belong to Tibeto-Burmese family. Rig Veda printed just 200 years ago. I was talking about 3500 years ago, few minutes back. So, what happened in between these 3500 years and 200 years ago it was printed? Priests taught students to recite and memorize each and every word of this hymn and also each and every sentence of these hymns. After several centuries, Rig Veda was written on a bark of a tree. Some of these hymns were composed by women. Some of the hymns were also in the form of dialogue. For example, there is a dialogue between a sage called Vishwamitra and 2 rivers, Beas and Sutlej. These 2 rivers were worshipped as goddesses. So Rig Veda mentions 7 rivers, that is Sapta Sindhu. These 7 rivers were mentioned several times. What are those 7 rivers? One is Indus and its tributaries, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, Sutlej and Saraswati. These are modern names. So actually what names were mentioned in Rig Veda? Indus as Sindhu, Jhelum Vitasta, Chenab Asikini, Ravi Parushni, Bias Vipas, Sutlej Shatudri, Saraswati as it is. Apart from these 7 rivers, there are 2 more rivers. Ganga and Yamuna were also mentioned. But those 2 rivers were mentioned only once. But these rivers were mentioned several times. So, in all together, they used one word, Sapta Sindhu. What it indicates? So, Rigvedic people resided in and around Sapta Sindhu region, that is located in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent. There are prayers in Rig Veda. These are the prayers for cattle and children, especially sons and horses. These horses were yoked to chariots and were used in battles. So, what is the significance of these battles during Rigvedic period? These battles were fought to capture cattle. Cattle was the main form of wealth during the Rigvedic period. And these battles fought for land as well, because land is important for pastures, and also land was used to grow various hardy crops like barley. Sometimes these battles were fought for water, and also sometimes these battles were fought to capture people. People means men and women. These captured men and women were considered as a property of their owners. These owners make them to do whatever work they want. Whatever wealth which they obtained during these battles, some portion was kept for themselves by the leaders, and some amount were given to priests, and some part was distributed amongst the people, and small portion of this wealth was used for performing yagnas or sacrifices, in which various offerings were made into the fire. These offerings were meant for gods and goddesses. What are these offerings? These offerings were ghee, grain, sometimes even animals. Most of the men usually participated in these battles, and there was no regular army during the Rigvedic period, but there were assemblies. Men usually came together and discuss about war and peace. They usually chose their leaders who could lead these battles. Rigveda described people by using different words. Suppose take the example of Vis and Jana. These were the different words used to describe a community as a whole. For example, Bharata Jana, Puru Jana, Yadu Jana, or else Bharata Vish, Puru Vish, like this. And all these things were happening in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent. And coming to our second topic in this chapter, that is burials. Megalithic culture was prevalent in the South India and Northeast India, and also some parts of Kashmir. They were erecting megaliths. What does it mean? Huge stone boulders. That means megaliths. These huge stone boulders were arranged in different forms, like arranged in a circular manner, and sometimes they used to place one single huge stone boulders so that they could mark various burial sites. What is the need for marking these burial sites? And if you look at some burial sites, you may come across more than one skeleton. It indicates perhaps all those skeletons belong to a same family. The bodies of those who died later generally brought into the grave through potholes, and they usually place these megaliths as a signpost so that they could come again to bury their family members, to identify those burial sites. These megaliths were placed on the surface of the ground, and some may often found underground as well. When you found these megaliths, it indicates that there are burials beneath. These burials are having some common features. Generally, dead were buried in the ground along with distinctive pots. These are called black and red ware. These burials generally contain various objects. Some of these burials may contain skeletons of horses and horse equipment like these things. These tools and weapons were made out of iron. Especially, there are several ornaments made out of stone and gold were also found in these burials. These objects which were placed with skeletons may belong to a dead person. These objects clearly indicate the social status of that period. Depending upon the number of objects, we can deduce that a person may be poor, rich, chief, or follower. Megalithic culture was prevailed 3000 years ago. That means 1000 BC. Now coming to Enam Gaon. Enam Gaon is a place located on the banks of the river God, which is the tributary of the river Bhima. And this place was occupied between 3600 years to 2700 years ago. Generally, the dead were buried in the ground, laid out straight, keeping head towards the north. This is a general thing, and there are burials inside the houses. There are vessels which were placed along with these burials. So those vessels contain food and water. And if you look at the special case at Enam Gaon, a man was buried in a four-legged clay jar, which was placed at the center of the courtyard, having 5 rooms. This house had a granary. And if you look at clay jar, how that a man was buried in that jar. He was placed in that jar in a cross-legged position. And archaeologists found several evidences at Enam Gaon. Okay? What are those evidences? They found seeds of wheat, rice, barley, pulses, millets, sesame, etc. And they found bones of several animals. These bones, some of these bones had cut marks. It indicates that people used these animals as their food. So what are those animals? Buffalo, cattle, sheep, goat, fish, crab, black bug, antelope, spotted deer, birds, etc. Fruit gathering evidence was also found at Enam Gaon. The people used to gather bear, jamun, amla, and several berries. So this is all about what books and burials tell us. In the next video, we are going to come up with our next topic. Thank you so much.